The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
There is no better venue than to hold Jerry Lawler's happy birthday episode of Dinner with the King than right here at his Memphis barbecue company named after him, Jerry the King Lawler, here in Cordova, Tennessee, a stone's throw away from Memphis, Tennessee. I am Glenn Moore, joined here today, like always, by WWE Hall of Famer. He is the birthday boy, Jerry the King Lawler. Jerry.
Woo-hoo. Thank you. I thought there would be a bigger turnout. A few people here, but yeah, obviously you didn't tell them that we were having my birthday dinner today, right?
No, only a few.
Well, and it's not exactly, we're kind of, as we do this, we're kind of between, it's not exactly lunchtime or anything like that or dinner time. We're kind of in between time, so it's probably why there's this, it's like an intimate gathering. I like it like this, really, though. It's quiet. Nobody's going to bother us.
But, King, you turn 68 years old today. How do you feel?
Well, whenever anybody asks me that, my standard answer is, I don't know, feel me and see.
I'll pass.
Get it? How do I feel? I don't know. Go ahead. What do you mean? How are you supposed to feel? I don't know. This is my first time I've ever turned 68. So I feel okay. Not like I got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel or anything like that.
You are an active wrestler still on the weekend, sometimes wrestling 3 times, sometimes twice in the same night in different cities. So, I mean, you must feel young again. I mean, you must feel like in your 30s still, right?
Honestly? Everything, you know what? This is something I was talking to Lauren about just the other day. I guess, I knew it was, I don't say I knew it was eventually going to catch up to me, but I heard so many other guys talk about it. And we used to think, gosh, I'm lucky. I don't have any problems physically at all. I feel really good. I feel just like I always felt every time I went in the ring, except lately, maybe in the last 6 months or so, my knees hurt. I mean, like every day, just like walking upstairs or anything. I mean, not anything that's going to make, like you just, as you're walking up the stairs, all of a sudden you start thinking, hey, my knees hurt. And so that's sort of thing. But other than that, I feel great. And it doesn't really affect me in a match or anything. It's almost something that you have to think about. When I get in there and start wrestling and everything, I don't even think about it. But other than on a daily basis, I feel fine with the exception of a little knee pain now. But I guess for 40 years now, on almost every single match, I've been jumping off the second rope and I've never worn knee pads my entire career, never. And so maybe I guess that is going to be one of the things that catch up to me and that I'll eventually have to pay for.
You said this before, but I want to echo it for this episode, just because it is your birthday, and when somebody finds out that Jerry Lawler still wrestles, they are shocked. For some reason, but you have never worked out a day in your life?
Nope.
Never worked out. That is just, in a world of bodybuilders and big guy wrestlers, that is amazing, I think.
Well, I always thought of it. I see these guys working out and sweating and all that sort of stuff, and I always looked at sweating was your body crying. And so I just I knew that when I could tell it wasn't fun, it was just something they felt like they had to do. And so I don't know. I just it never appealed to me. Never did it.
And it's interesting for a guy that wrestles for 46 years, is it?
Well, because I looked at, I don't know, I always looked at the wrestling as the match, as my workout. I mean, back in the day, it wasn't like today. I mean, matches were always 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes long. And I can't tell you how many hour draws I had with Harley Race and different guys like that, for the championship. And to me, that was always a pretty good workout, being in the ring and getting your cardio going and that kind of physical work for 25 or 30 minutes. And that was that was a daily basis. We did wrestling not just one time a week. We wrestled every night of the week, and sometimes, like we talked about before, on Saturdays I'd go wrestle 4 different TV shows. So I always looked at that as my working out. I always did it in the ring.
It has to be liberating, for a profession that, does go on look, but also ability. But a lot of guys in the business, they watch what they eat. They eat all the, the healthy food that, most people don't like eating. They can't enjoy a nice, juicy burger most of the time. But I've spent, countless times with you, and we go to Five Guys, we go to Taco Bell. we you can eat anything you want, and you don't work out, and you have a 46-year career. I think that's amazing.
Probably luck. Probably just lucky.
Genetics.
But when I first got into the business, and I'd go to McDonald's, people would just stand outside and watch that sign change where it's sitting on 1 billion sold, 2 billion sold. It was.
What's the most you made? What's
the
biggest McDonald's order have you had ever?
Oh no, I didn't order. I didn't like eat 10 burgers or anything like that. But it was just like, I would be happy. I could eat every meal of the day at McDonald's at one time in my career. Still, that's probably one of my most often stopped at fast food joints. I know, at the WWE shows, I know the catering has. You go to catering at WWE, it's great. And there's everything. There's just tons of sweets, cakes, pies, cookies, cupcakes, every kind of sweet imaginable.
I go for the steaks. When you
they have great steaks. The one standby that I think probably most of the WWE people stick to is the grilled chicken. That's and then they always have the good vegetables and everything. But it's all, somehow at the end of the day though, all those sweets are gone.
All right, well, let's move past the food and get into.
What are we talking about food? I'm got to have some birthday cake here today too somewhere.
Well, yeah. Well, it is your birthday.
Hey, have you tried the new banana pudding that we have on the menu now?
I have, and I usually don't like banana pudding, but I like your banana pudding, Jerry.
There you go.
But
hey, the commercial appeal down here in Memphis gave our restaurant here a really good review last weekend last Friday in the paper.
Well, that's good.
They talked. Some guy went around, or I guess what they were talking about. They went to all the different barbecue places in Memphis, and there are a ton of them.
Yeah. And
they picked out like the top 5. It was, I think, 5 different places where they really enjoyed the smoked sausage sandwich, which of course you see right there. That's what we call the Rude Awakening. And they ranked us up there. They said this is like a hidden treasure in Memphis, was the way they described it. That you might not think that at Jerry Lawler's would be one of the top standout smoked sausage sandwiches in the entire city, and they had us listed in there as that.
That's awesome. Good reviews here.
The guy must have come at a time like this, because one of the things he said, Jerry Lawler has lended his name or something. I can't remember exactly the way he worded it. He said, but I don't know how much his name is drawing, because he said every time I've been in there was the place wasn't packed or crowded or anything like that.
But there's a steady crowd here.
Oh, yeah,
it's always
absolutely. Yeah, we're happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we're happy. You could always we'd love the place jam packed all day long, but it's not that. But it's still, it's a good place to eat. And then also, it's like there was an old saying about who was it? Yogi Berra once said about some place, some restaurant, and he said, "Yeah, nobody goes there anymore because it's too crowded." Right? That's a typical Yogi Berraism.
Yeah.
But nobody likes to go to a place that's always jam packed, where you have to wait to get in or sit down and all that kind of stuff. So I love it like this.
All right. Well, it is your birthday, and we have a handful of birthday messages / questions from fans, some people that you may know. But also, Jerry, to end the show, I have some audio of a famous professional wrestler / actor singing "Happy Birthday" for your birthday. So I'm not going to tell you who it is. I know you hate surprises. But I
do hate surprises.
I'm going to save it for.
And I know later on today, Lauren is going to do something like a couple years ago.
This is a PG show, Jerry.
Oh no, that's not a surprise. What? What are you talking about? No, a couple of years, like she did this big surprise party for me, and I was genuinely, usually, you see on TV or something, people come into a big surprise party like, surprise, and they were expecting it or whatever. She really actually got me. She had like 50 people. I mean, relatives and friends and family and all of this sort of stuff at this restaurant, and suckered me right out there. We all of a sudden go into this room and boom, surprise! Here's guys from that I played on my ball team years ago that I went to school with, and everybody that I knew was like in this restaurant for a surprise birthday party, and that was great because it was all people that I loved and everything was there. But ordinarily I don't like any kind of surprise.
Well, I'm saving the surprise for you for the end of the show when we sing you happy birthday, Jerry.
Everybody in here going to sing happy birthday too? Also, we were eating in this place the other night. We had one of those Japanese restaurants, where they cook it on the table in front of you. And so
hibachi.
Hibachi. There you go. So anyway, about two different times, there's like 8 or 10 people at every table, and two different times they came out and sang happy birthday. And then at this particular place, they did some kind of thing where they beat on this little drum, and it was just very annoying. So I don't have all the help come over here to the table and start singing happy birthday to me. That's embarrassing.
No, that is terrible. If I go out for my birthday or I even see that for someone else, I feel bad for them when all the employees come out. They're half-heartedly singing happy birthday. They don't want to be there either. They don't want to do it.
Of course not.
And it's embarrassing. And just don't do that. If you have a friend and you're going to take them out to do that, go to Applebee's or some chain restaurant.
Applebee's, some real nice place, right?
Well, no, I'm saying, the nice places don't do that. The nice places don't do that.
Hooters will do that sometimes.
Like I said, the nice places won't do that, Jerry.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Now you're going to talk Hooters.
Well, I'm talking about fine dining places won't do that.
Well, like, where do you go to watch the Browns games?
I watch it at home. I don't like watching games at bars.
Because you're up in Cleveland then, so.
Yeah, I don't like watching games at bars or restaurants. Because you get a lot of armchair quarterbacks that think they know everything.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't really like doing that. But I watch it at home. But I'm saying, the employees don't want to do it. When I worked at a restaurant back in my early years, I hated doing that. So just don't do it. Just don't ask for that. Just go there, enjoy your dinner, and don't embarrass yourself.
Well, look, I'm on the same page. I agree with you 100%. I don't want that, so I hope you haven't lined up my help back here to come out and sing happy birthday.
No, you
just said later on in the show. Yeah. Oh, we're singing happy birthday.
Well, I'll let the person who sent the message sing to you.
Oh, okay, that'll be better.
All right, let's get into the voicemails. Let's talk about WrestleCade weekend. WrestleCade was this past weekend. We talked about it. You cut a little promo on George South, your opponent. How did Saturday go in the Carolina?
Well, first of all, anybody that's listening that did not know, in the Carolinas, apparently, is that a yearly event? Do they do that every year?
I want to say they do.
Okay, well, it's the first time I was at one. But anyway, it's called WrestleCade. It was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which, of course, was the Carolinas, a hotbed for the NWA wrestling and then WCW wrestling and all that sort of stuff. So they put together this event called WrestleCade, and they just brought in tons of wrestlers that used to appear in the area and some that didn't. I mean, I was there, but I'd never. That may have been the first time I was ever in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. But man, there was just tons of people there, tons of talent. And the crowd was amazing. It was like the big event thing that I was at in New Jersey just a few weeks ago. There's thousands of people that come through this thing, and then then after that, later on in the day, they had a wrestling show as well, where a bunch of the guys that were there, came out and wrestled. And you're right, I had a match with George South. But one of the cool things was I like going to those things as well, because I see guys that I've worked with for years and years and years, but that you haven't seen in years. Just when I'm staying over here in Memphis, and these guys are either traveling around the country at different places, or they're mostly at home or something like that. But all of a sudden, I was just seeing all sorts of guys. I've sat next my table. You get there and you got a table and you got a big banner behind you with your picture on it and all this sort of stuff. So my table was right next to Mick Foley. Mick Foley was right on my right, and then on my left was somebody that a lot of people think I don't get along with, and I don't. It's not that I don't get along with him. It's just I very seldom ever have any interaction with him, never see him or talk to him. And that's my cousin, Wayne Ferris, Honky Tonk Man. So he was at the table to my left, him and Jimmy Hart. And of course, me and Jimmy, we're big buddies, and I see Jimmy a lot. But so they were there, but I was sitting between those two guys. And then on the other side of Mick Foley was Brutus the Barber Beefcake. They had a little barber shop set up for him, a little area there. And so, and then people just come up, take pictures with you, and sign autographs and action figures and all that sort of stuff for them. So, but it was a lot of fun. Tons of people that I hadn't seen in a long, long time. One guy that was huge here for us in Memphis, as the fabulous ones, was Stan Lane and Steve Kern. And after, let's see, I don't know if it was, I guess, I don't know which was first. I don't know if he was the Midnight Express first. I think he was maybe the Midnight Express first, with Bobby Eaton and Jim Cornette managed him. Or maybe that was after. I'm not sure. But anyway, I hadn't seen Stan in a long, long time. But Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton and Jim Cornette were there. They had a little reunion of the Midnight Express, and those guys were big. They went over to the Carolinas, and they were big over there. So a lot of people seeing them. Bobby Fulton was there. Tommy Rich was there. Man, I don't know, just tons of people. Like Bruce Barber, Hornswoggle was there. Rikishi was there. My son, Grandmaster Sexay, was there. Sergeant Slaughter, got to see Sarge, talk to him a little bit. It's always great to see Sarge. He was there. And Jack Swagger, Ryback. You remember Dan Severn?
Of course, Dan the Beast Severn.
Yeah, he was there. Speaking of Beast, Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump. I said, man, he is still big he looked awesome. Al Snow was there. Handsome Jimmy Valiant, D'Lo Brown. Oh gosh, Billy Gunn. J.J. Dillon rode back to the airport in Charlotte with J.J. Dillon. Who? Boogeyman, yeah. Oh yeah, the Boogeyman. Both Boogeymen. I mean, Boogeyman or Handsome Jimmy Valiant, when he went to the Carolinas, he became, he was known as Boogie Woogie Man or Boogeyman over there. So somebody came up to me and said, Boogie is over there. And I thought they were talking about Valiant, and then I looked over and it was the Boogeyman. And the real Boogeyman, the one from WWE, and all in costume, eating worms and stuff. Oh yeah, Road Warrior Animal was there. Edge and Christian, Matt Stryker. Oh gosh, who else? John Morrison was there. Joey Mercury.
Eminem, yeah.
And another guy I hadn't seen in a long time. Tatanka was there. Tatanka.
We talked
Tracy
about
Smothers and Rock and Roll Express. Of course, they were big. They were big over there as well.
They're a Starrcade. Rock and Roll Express made an appearance at Starrcade.
Yes, they did. That was another little thing that a lot of people were kind of upset about there at the WrestleCade, was the fact that the WWE booked a show just apparently it's just like 30 miles or 40 miles away in Greensboro, called Starrcade, which used to be a huge show Thanksgiving weekend for WCW. And so now that WWE owns that name, they came in on Thanksgiving weekend, booked the Starrcade show, and they had a lot of the guys from back in that day on their show. Arn Anderson, of course, and but some of the guys worked both shows. Like Arn Anderson was at WrestleCade, Rock and Roll Express was at WrestleCade. Then at night they went over and worked the show in Greensboro. It's the Starrcade thing.
Nice.
while I stayed and worked the show at WrestleCade against George South.
And he got the win.
Yeah, and that was I don't know if it made him upset or not, but I won the match there in because that was like his hometown.
Yeah, he didn't bring Rick with him. He didn't bring Rick ringside or anything like that. Ric Flair.
No, Rick was over at Starrcade.
Yeah. Too bad for George.
I told him he should take Kikutaro out there.
Kikutaro, yeah, he loved Kikutaro.
How do you know Kikutaro?
He actually wrestled here in Cleveland last year with Colt Cabana. You know who Colt Cabana is?
Yeah, well, of course I know Colt Cabana. And then I put this picture up that Kikutaro. I had a picture made with Kikutaro, and he put it on Twitter. And somebody put up there, the only person missing from this picture is Colt Cabana.
That was me, you idiot.
Hey, don't call me an idiot on my own show.
That was me.
Oh, that was your tweet.
Because Colt Cabana and Kikutaro, they did like a little.
I'm bad about reading tweets. I read the tweet, but I never read who it's actually from.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah, probably. Oh, yeah. But anyway, yeah, Kikutaro. That's like the second time I've seen him, and he has this really goofy-looking mask. Is he like a comedy wrestler or whatever?
Yeah,
or what's the deal with him?
He's more of a comedy wrestler.
Oh.
He's great, though. He's great.
He loves me. Oh, he come up. Oh, and I'm just standing. I'm looking at him, and he's just like, oh, Mr. King. Oh, Mr. King, please, can Mr. King, can I have a picture with Kikutaro? And I said, sure, but he's just like, he was a big fan. And I took the picture with him, and he just started bowing. Well, thank you so much, Mr. King. But I want to see him wrestle. I didn't get to see. I think he wrestled over there, but I didn't get to see his match. What are you laughing at? Why are you laughing? He's got an accent. He's a Japanese wrestler.
Did you know who he was before he came over?
Look at Lauren over there at the other table. She's rolling her eyes. What, is that inappropriate? Is that not politically correct to say that? I'm not making fun of him. It's the way he sounds, just like that. He is a fan of mine, big fan. I'm not making. If he's listening, he knows I'm not making fun of him. That's just exactly the way he sounded. I like him.
And I like him too. He's a great wrestler.
I wanted to see his match, and I did not get to see it.
Did you know who he was before he came over?
Yeah, well, I mean, the very first time I met him, which was a few years ago, I did not know. I don't get to keep up that much with the Japanese wrestling, but I didn't know. But now I know. I mean, he's got an unmistakable look. That mask is just that's out there, man.
So I went to a show over the weekend on Friday, and it turns out one of the independent wrestlers, he is a big fan of the podcast and a big fan of yours, Jerry Lawler, and he has probably one of the greatest entrances that I've seen in a very long time when it comes to indie wrestling. He comes out to some Sherlock Holmes like BBC trailer. It's just a guy speaking it's really emphasizing certain words that goes with like Sherlock, just like kind of like it's more of like a pump up trailer. And he comes out with his arms raised. He has like a Macho Man like cape on, and he walks through the crowd, like by the crowd, and he walks along the rails, and he has his hands out like he's opening up to like the heavens above. And if you have to move, if you're a fan, you have to move. If his hand hits you, it hits you. He doesn't move his hand. Like, you have to move for him. And if somebody slaps his hand, he immediately wants $10 for the hand slap. So he's great. His name is
Is it Virgil?
No, it's not Virgil. His name is Magnum CK, and it was his first time. I think it was his first time wrestling.
Magnum CK. That's original.
What?
Well, Magnum TA. Come on.
Magnum CK. Well, I mean, there's also another wrestler.
Like somebody calling themselves Jerry the King Fowler or something.
No, well, hold on, King. There's a wrestler in Cleveland. His name is Gary the King Baller.
You are lying. You're making that up.
No, I am dead serious, King. His name is, I want to say it's Jerry. No, it's not Jerry. It's Gary the King Baller. And he comes out.
Gary the King Baller.
Gary the King Baller.
Come on.
And he comes out and he does like what MVP used to do, the baller, like the ball in with his hand, like he's shooting a hoop.
Yeah,
he does that. That's what he does. Gary.
So he's ripping off. He's ripping off more than just me, right?
So he has like a baseball hat, and he has like the crown on his baseball hat, and Gary the King Baller.
Too cheap to buy a real crown, so he's the first baseball cap with a crown on it.
Well, it's more hip hop. It's more His name is Garrison King, and he goes by Gary the King Baller. He's king of the streets.
Well, I resemble or resent that remark.
I
don't like that. I don't like that. He's the king of the streets.
I'm gonna. I know you're sitting next to me, but I'm gonna send you this photo just for your.
Where I can look at it on my phone.
Yeah, so because you can keep it for future reference when it comes to copyright infringement. Trying to get this photo, but yeah. So he comes out as Gary the King Baller. Now, if you would ever come to Cleveland, you could wrestle him, and you could take care of this personally, right?
Oh, of course.
Gary the
Absolutely.
King Baller. He's like.
Hey, I'm coming. You know what? Friday night, I'm coming close to Cleveland. You're going to be there, right?
Where are you coming? I don't know. I didn't know.
Youngstown, Ohio. The Youngstown Phantoms hockey league or hockey team.
Okay.
I'm going to be there Friday night.
Are you dropping
Youngstown?
Are you dropping the puck?
Both. Yes, I'm dropping the puck.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be like WrestleCade. All of a sudden they're having like a wrestling themed night there at the hockey game, and I'm gonna be there signing autographs, taking pictures, and action figures, all this, all that sort of stuff that goes along with one of those appearances. But yeah, dropping the puck is gonna be cool there. The Youngstown Phantoms.
Oh my God, King!
What?
Before the show started, we do our show prep, and we talked about Tracy Smothers a little bit, didn't we?
Yes.
Now. Here in Cleveland, the promotion wrestling is AIW, Absolute Intense Wrestling. I think you did something with them in 2008 or something. But you haven't wrestled in Cleveland. You wrestled all over, but you haven't wrestled here in Cleveland. But they're putting on a show December 15th here in Cleveland. And guess who the two main guys are for this show?
Well, probably Tracy Smothers is one of them.
Yeah, and we just talked about the other one. Kikutaro. Kikutaro's coming to Cleveland.
You are lying. No, really?
It's the show is called Escaped the Wet Bandits, and it's like the Wet Bandits for Home Alone, and it's Tracy Smothers and Kikutaro, the two main feature guys, coming to Cleveland.
Wow.
And I hope Magnum CK is there. But I sent you a photo of the King Gary the King Baller. You get that photo yet?
Probably.
Gary the King Baller.
I'm getting a message from my friend Nick Barucci, who owns Dynamite Comics. I do a lot of, well, I don't do a lot, but I've done comic book covers for Nick on Dynamite Comics, and people like to take advantage of my fact that I have almost 1.4 million followers now on Twitter, and he just sent me this message. Said, Jerry, can you help me out by mentioning our Kickstarter for Red Sonja comic books? And so I'm going to have to, in a few minutes, I'm going to take time out to retweet this for my buddy.
Well, you retweet anything anyway, so I mean, just tag
Jerry.
Jerry.
Retweet everything.
Tag Jerry Lawler, and he'll retweet it no matter what it is. He doesn't even look at it.
At Jerry Lawler, come on, I'll help you out.
Oh, speaking of, remember you?
Well, before we get off on that, I wanted to mention one other person that was a big fan at WrestleCade. Okay. And he came up and he talked to me for such a long time, and he just kept talking. I didn't even know he even knew who I was. But anyway, do you remember a guy named David McLean?
Sounds familiar.
It may even be before your time. But David McLean was the guy that started Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Ooh, Glow. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was David McLean, and he was the founder of it, and then he was the announcer and all of that stuff. He was like the Vince McMahon of Glow Wrestling, and he was there, and he's starting up a new venture. I think this may be called WOW. I don't know, something about women, WOW or something. But anyway, he had a bunch of attractive young ladies there with him, walking around, getting their pictures made with everybody, and I did some sort of little promo with him. But yeah, David McLean, I didn't remember. This guy has an amazing story, in the fact that it just showed me, man, it's who you know, or being in the right place at the right time, but mainly, if you know somebody that can open a door for you some kind of way, it's just all kind of things can happen for you. But some way he got a meeting with the back in the day with the ESPN people, and he walked in and just, literally walked in a meeting with all of these top executives, the head people of ESPN, and said what he had was one skate, a rollerblade skate, and he sold those people on putting together a roller hockey league. Okay. Did you ever hear of it?
No, I have not.
Well, this was years ago now, but it made it onto ESPN. He got the league start. He walked into ESPN and just had this crazy idea of, guys, I'm going to put together this roller hockey league, and you guys will own it. You guys can televise and everything. They gave the guy $1 million.
Wow.
Just walked in with nothing. He said, I had nothing to show. He said, I just talked about what he had envisioned it would be like. And he walked out with a check for $1 million from ESPN. And he got it on, and he put it on. And if you remember, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling was on, I can't even remember when this was, maybe even before the 80s or something like that. But it was a big deal at the time. Well, David he was just sitting there saying how I influenced him and what a big fan he was of my work and all this kind of stuff. But he's back with some more gorgeous ladies that's going to try to get going again.
Nice. Well,
nice story there. Big deal.
No, because Glow is big on Netflix. The whole show.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Well, we talked about Glow. The ladies of Glow that were backstage in L.A. The actresses.
Okay. Yeah.
We talked about that earlier. Oh, see, you don't remember, King.
I know. Well, I get hit on the head a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, and speaking of Netflix, man, this Jim and Andy, the Great Beyond thing, everybody's talking about that. Oh, what?
We have some voicemails, and that's one of the happy birthdays we get from our fan.
Oh, okay.
Well, we have to. I don't want you to spoil it. I want to give Chris from the UK a chance to tell you happy birthday and also ask this question. But before that, remember when you tweeted out, "Please follow Glenn Moore"?
Oh yeah.
I got like 60 new followers.
That's it?
That's it. 60. So you don't really have that many.
You're not a very well liked man, are you?
No, I think you don't have that very good of a reach on social media.
Well, I got almost 1.4 million followers. What do you mean? Well, you know what? I'll tell you what I've found out is very, very important about social media and Twitter. It's the timing of your tweet.
Exactly. Well, duh.
And I think I sent that tweet out about you at like 11:30 at night or something here in Memphis.
Well,
which was like, after midnight on the East Coast or something like that.
Yeah, it was late.
Yeah. So that, a lot of people don't see that. And then, people wake up the next morning, they don't see what I tweeted out last night.
That's why the show goes up at 8 a.m. because people going to work or on their way to work or at work, they can, the new show popped up 8 a.m. We're ready for their day.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I put a tweet out, people wanting to call our voicemail or hotline to wish you a happy birthday, King. All right.
Okay.
So I picked a handful of these that are relevant to some questions. They have some questions as well, but this is from Chris in the UK, and he has a question to the topic that you were about to talk about. So here we go.
Hi, Jerry. This is Chris from the UK. Big fan, big respect for both Dinner with the King and your whole wrestling career. I just wanted to know, after watching the new Netflix documentary, did Jim Carrey get to you that much while portraying Andy Kaufman? Because it seriously looked like he was getting to you on that documentary. Have a great day for your birthday, mate. Have a good one. All the best, pal. Bye.
Now, if I try to do his accent, I'll be in trouble, right? It's like you can't. That would be not politically correct to try to do the English accent.
I would not.
I can't do it.
No. Yeah.
But no. But that is a good question, and I appreciate the birthday wish all the way over from the UK. And that's what I was saying. It's that thing on Netflix, the documentary about Jim and Andy and me and all of what went on during the filming of Man on the Moon, I am getting so many responses, and people are seeing this thing all over the world. And that's the main question that I get is, did he really, for real, get to me, during the filming of that movie? And the answer is absolutely yes. I was so ticked off at Jim Carrey, I wanted to beat his face in at one point. So we're doing this scene where it's the reveal that Andy and I had really actually been working together, and then George was telling the two of us, I don't think it's a good idea for you guys to work together anymore here. Andy's been voted off Saturday Night Live, and the people aren't liking the wrestling deal that Andy's doing. So he's telling the two of us we shouldn't work together. And so we start shooting the scene, and then George, or I start saying Andy, but anyway, Jim Carrey, it comes to a point where he's got, my line was, "Oh, I'm sorry, George. We just thought it was funny." And then Jim comes back to me and he says, "Oh no, Jerry, you don't have anything to be sorry for. You were great. You were terrific." And he was supposed to say, and it was a shining moment for comedy or something like that. So I said my line, and then he says his lines like, "You were great. You were terrific." And he goes like this, and I knew, we're going to have to redo it. So I just said, "And it was a shining moment for comedy, right?" Oh my God. He looked at me. The room got deadly silent. And he just stared at me and glared at me for 5 or 10 seconds. And I'm looking at him, and then I looked over at, I wanted to say George, but I looked at Danny DeVito, and he's just staring straight ahead too, right? And all of a sudden I look around at all the people as like everybody is just, they don't know what to say. So all of a sudden Jim Carrey stands up. He walks across the room over to a corner, and he kneels down, like he squats down, and he's got both his arms on his legs as he squats down, and has clenched his fist. And everybody's staring at him. Nobody's saying a word. And all of a sudden he starts screaming, "Ah! Ah!" I mean, at the top of his lungs, he lets out these 3 big screams. And as he's squatting down over there by himself. And I look back at Danny DeVito, and he just gives me a look like, and shakes his head like, and does his hand like, don't say anything. Don't say anything, right? And so then Jim Carrey, after 3 screams, he stands up, he walks back over to the desk, he sits down, he looks over at the director, and he said, no, he looked at me first, and he said, "You were right. I forgot my line. Now, can we get this scene shot, because I'm very uncomfortable sitting next to this man?" And that was my introduction to Jim Carrey. And so you can imagine how the rest of the filming went through the entire movie. And I mean, he did things, he slapped me on the back one time, acting like he was my buddy. "Hey, Jerry, how are you this morning?" And at the same time, he stuck a sign. He taped a sign on my back that said "Hulk Hogan wannabe." And I walked around for like 15 minutes with that sign stuck on my back, not knowing it. And yeah, I mean, there were several times that we really almost, I mean, I would have loved to have had a real physical altercation with him. But, and it really came close. Then I did actually, I lost it at one time when he spit in my face during the wrestling scene. And I snatched him. I threw a couple of guys out of the way, sprained Paul Giamatti's ankle in the process, and then grabbed Jim Carrey around the neck. And I was going to try to choke him out. But I don't know, this was in front of 3,000 people as we were doing the wrestling scene. And after about 10 seconds, I came to and said to myself, and I said, "God, you can't beat up Jim Carrey in front of all these people." So I let him go. And, they pulled him out of the ring. He wound up going to the hospital, showing up the next day with his neck in a brace, and had me fired from the movie. So, yeah, it was really a tense and not a very much fun working environment. And all of this is documented and seen. I wasn't even thinking about it at the time that they were filming all of this in the making of this documentary. But anyway, all of that is in this movie, Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. So and like I said, everybody is wondering how much of a jerk he was. And he admits in the documentary, that, this footage has never been released because it shows what an a-hole. He says, well, Universal didn't want this footage out there because they didn't want everybody to think I was an a-hole. Yeah. And that's what it shows, that what kind of an a-hole he really was during this thing.
It's just funny to watch, and see what, especially the segment that they featured you, and then towards the end that, you came back to with the match and going to the hospital. I mean, he wasn't really hurt though. He wanted to see how far he could take it, right?
Yeah, I don't think he was hurt. I mean, I promise you, I would have hurt him if I'd have had a little more time, or if I hadn't have come to my senses. But no, he just wanted to reenact everything that happened to Andy. He wanted it to happen to him. That's why he wanted me to pile drive him. That's how the whole spit in the face came about. And I knew from, this is already like 60 days into the 80 days of him being in character. We're already like 60 days into this crap. And I knew immediately that he wanted me to really pile drive him. And I knew if I did, he was going to milk it and go to the hospital just like Andy did. He was going to lay in the hospital for 3 days with his neck in traction, and he was going to redo what Andy experienced. That's all he wanted to do. And that's why when I refused to give him the pile driver, he took it he took it to the next level, spit in my face, because I think he knew at that point that he was going to get some sort of reaction out of me, which he did. And then when I wound up grabbing him in that reverse chin lock, he used that opportunity to sell his neck, to say, oh, now my neck is hurt just like Andy's was, and I need to go to the hospital just like Andy did, and I'm going to get a neck brace to wear just like Andy did. And that's what he accomplished.
It was just terrific to see Carrey be Andy Kaufman for that whole time, and have everybody, addressing him as Andy, buying into the whole shtick of, even Offset, being Andy Kaufman, especially you,
But the funny thing with me was I knew Andy, and nobody else except Bob Zamuda, and then of course Lynn Margulies was Andy's real life girlfriend. She was the one that was filming all this backstage stuff, and Bob Zamuda played a part of some TV guy on the Fridays show where they reenacted the scene where Andy threw the water into the face of the guy that's Kramer on Seinfeld. But anyway, the other people, they didn't really know Andy. Jim Carrey had never really met Andy Kaufman, and so he thought he was being what Andy was really like, but he wasn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was 100 miles away from what Andy was really like. But nobody else realized that either, because the other people didn't really know Andy, So, and that's what really got to me, because I knew the real Andy, and Andy was not like what Jim Carrey was portraying.
Mm-hmm. And you guys are really, behind the scenes of Lawler versus Kaufman. You guys were buds. You guys were okay.
Yes, absolutely. Andy just loved wrestling so much, and he put all of that stuff into my hands. He was like a little kid in a candy store when he got to be backstage and around the actual wrestling. He was just so in awe of everything, and he was just like, he said, don't ask me or tell me, I don't even want an input. I just want to do it like you guys do wrestling. And so, I told him, we told him everything, how to do this stuff. I mean, all the way down to the interviews. I mean, he cut those interviews in my house over here on Walnut Grove Road in Memphis about talking about the South. And I did Vince Russo. I did a radio show with Vince Russo out in Denver, Colorado this past week. And Vince asked me a question that I had never really thought about. And he had a good answer for it. He said, I told everybody, and most people know that Andy Kaufman actually went and pitched the idea to Vince McMahon up in New York before he contacted me. He went to them and said, hey, I'm wrestling women, and I want to wrestle women in front of in front of wrestling fans at an actual wrestling show. He said, I've just been doing it on TV and at comedy clubs. And he said, it's not being that well accepted. And he said, I just want to do it in front of wrestling fans. And Vince turned him down. They didn't use him because at the time he said, our fans are skeptical anyway, and I don't want to involve an actor in with our wrestling because I think that, then maybe the fans might think, oh, we're all just actors and they're acting and that sort of stuff. So that's how Andy got put in my lap. My buddy, Bill Apter, was Bill was at the time, he was the top wrestling magazine guy in the country, and he was also friends with Andy. They both were from Long Island, New York. So he told Andy, he said, well, Vince McMahon didn't want to do it here in New York. He said, I got a friend down in Memphis, Jerry Lawler, and he and Jerry Jarrett have their own promotion down there. And they said, I'll bet they would be interested. So then, then Bill calls me and tells me what happened, and he tells me about Andy, and he says, I'm going to have Andy call you. And he did. And so that's how we got put together. And Vince Russo was asking me the question the other day. He said, do you think that if Vince McMahon had said, okay, Andy, yeah, we'll do the same. We'll do here in New York, what they did with you or what you want to do. And then, Memphis would have never been in the picture. Vince was saying, do you think it would have been as successful as what you guys did down in Memphis? And my thought was, I said, yeah, I think it would have, because, the whole deal was about Andy Kaufman. Andy was the star. Andy was the legitimate top television star of the #1 TV show in the nation at the time, Taxi. And that was before cable. That was when there were 3 networks to watch. And he was a huge star. And I said, Andy was what made the angle work. And then he reminded me of something that made it different for us down in Memphis. And he said, I don't think it would have been the same. And he said, because of the fact that what got the heat and what made everybody mad at Andy was the fact that he knocked the South and the women of the South and Memphis, Tennessee in general, and that's what made the people really upset with him. And like he said, he would not have been able to get that same kind of heat in New York, because he's from New York and he's up there. It just wouldn't be the same. He's go out and knock New York. People he's saying, why you knock New York? You're from New York, So I think that did make a world of difference in getting the heat on Andy that we had with him here in Memphis by the fact that he was not from here. He threw up the big deal. I'm from Hollywood. I'm a big star and all of this stuff. Well, if he'd been doing that in New York, New York's the media capital of the world too. It would have been no big deal. There was a lot of stars up there too. So I think that did make it unique, the fact that Andy was doing all of this stuff here in Memphis where he could make fun of the Southern people. And that was part of the stuff that he let me throw in there for him in putting those interviews together. And that's one of the things that made it, I think, as successful as it was.
And I think if Vince, and this is Vince McMahon Sr., not Jr., correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I know if Sr. would have, said, hey, we're going to do this, I think it probably would have been like a one-off thing and not a continued,
Yeah, exactly. I believe you're right as well.
Yeah.
And the reason we continued it down in Memphis was because all of a sudden we had the biggest star in television coming into our little town of Memphis, Tennessee. That itself was a huge deal. As opposed to New York, it wouldn't have been that big a deal. And then, we sold out. We turned people away every time Andy was there. So it was in our best interest. We wanted to bring him back as much as possible. So, and honestly, Andy's intentions at first, he just wanted to do it one time, just to experience it, see what it was like. And then when, in our eyes, we thought we saw dollars, we saw money. And so we asked Andy to keep coming back. And that's when he really fell in love with, with the actual inner workings of the wrestling business. Up until that time, he didn't know anything about that. All he knew was go in there and wrestle some women around, push them around, and win the match with a woman, and then insult women. But then once he got a little involved in the business and being the backstage and that stuff, he became immersed in it. He fell in love with it.
Yeah, it was a great documentary. It was a great film. And it would be great to have Jim on to talk with you, just as Jim Carrey, not as Andy Kaufman, and to really kind of get his view on, more focused on the stuff that he did to you, like shaking your trailer and bothering you when you're going to makeup and haircut. I mean, you was just a pest.
Well, you know what? Let me reach over here and grab this. I knew we were going to talk about this, so I brought the letter that Jim Carrey wrote to me a couple of years ago. Hang on a second. Let me really over here and grab this. All right, here I got it right here. I brought it with me.
Jerry, don't get barbecue sauce on that.
No, you're right. I mean, look at this. Look at this piece of paper. This is like that. It's like gold parchment paper. Very special.
Very nice.
This letter here. Anyway, and I've never shared this with anybody. Nobody knows about this. Or actually, the actual wording of what he wrote. I've told people that, that I heard from him since the original movie. But this was like maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. I get a call. I mean, I hadn't heard anything from Jim Carrey since the filming of the movie, 17 or 18 years ago or anything like that. So all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, out of the blue, I get a call, and I thought this was maybe a joke. I get a call from Jim Carrey's secretary out in California. I said, Mr. Lawler? I said, yeah. She said, this is, I'm secretary for Jim Carrey, and Mr. Carrey has something that he would like to send you, and I just want to call and get your mailing address. And I said, Jim Carrey's got something he wants to send me. I said, what is it? And she's, I can't tell you. It's a surprise. Oh, boy. Yeah, and I'm like, what in the world? So anyway, I give her my mailing address, and that was it. We hang up. And a few days later, I get this box in the mail. And I open it up, and the first thing on top of the box is this letter from Jim. And it says, Your Royal Highness. Yeah, that's the way he starts this thing off, right? Now, to preface this, I don't know if you remember in the movie when we did the wrestling scenes, they had made this costume for me that sort of resembled one of the ones that I guess they just looked at the footage of what what Jim and I wore that night or what Andy and I wore that night at the actual match, and so they tried to copy this wrestling robe that I had on, and they did a good job. I mean, it was just big ornate robe that sort of looked like it was inspired by what Kiss would wear on stage. And so anyway, apparently the first thing that I kind of figured out when I'm reading this letter is somebody gave him or sent him that wrestling outfit, that robe. I didn't get to take it back with me after we did the filming. I never saw it again. It just stayed in the wardrobe or whatever. And apparently somebody gave it to him. And I deduced from reading this that maybe he thought I sent it to him, is the reason that he was responding with this. Or I don't know how he got it, but obviously he got it, because here's what he said. He said, Your Royal Highness, your wrestling outfit is absolutely the greatest gift anybody has ever sent me. To have that piece of memorabilia from the most avant-garde moment in comedy history is a real thrill for me. Working with you was both an honor and an odyssey. I truly felt that Andy was still in charge, and I hope you'll accept this modest gift in return. I know you've done some music, so I wanted to share some treasures I found in my record collection. And I'm reading this, and then I look in the box, and here's like 10 old vinyl albums, record albums, right? And they're all done by wrestlers. There's like an album by Antonio Rocco that had to come from like maybe in the 50s or 60s, the guy that wrestled barefoot up there in New York, right? Yeah. Okay, it's an album that it's all these albums that wrestlers had done for one reason or other. Sweet Daddy Siki, the first WWF wrestling music album with Hulk Hogan on the cover. I mean, just I don't know, about 10 different albums that I had never seen or heard before, except for the WWF one, was in this box. And so I'm expecting something really cool, and all of a sudden I see these old wrestling albums, and I thought, oh brother, he said, but and then he goes on, he said, but seriously, that was way beyond generous. So I mean, I think he's going back now about talking about the robe, that I wore out there, and I think he thinks that he thought that I sent it to him. He said, but seriously, that was way beyond generous. And if you're ever in LA, please don't hesitate to call. I have a box at the Staples Center for basketball, hockey, and special events, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Hail to the king, your loyal subject. And then it's personally signed Jim Carrey.
That's amazing, King.
So, yeah, it is kind of amazing. But then, you hear this. I have a box at the Staples Center for basketball, hockey, and special events, and I'd love for you to be my guest. But in typical Jim Carrey fashion, he did not include a way to get back in touch with him to line up being his guest, or to, it was just this box and letter with no return address or anything like that, where I could, get in touch with him to come and be his guest at the Staples Center. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of
well, do
weird.
You have the phone number for the secretary, the caller ID?
No.
Wow.
No.
Well, Jim Carrey, if you're listening, Jerry Lawler wants to be your guest. Oh, you got a waffle fry in you.
Yeah. Wow. Excuse me. You're right. I do. I'm still waiting on that invite to be in your box at the Staples Center.
Well, now that Jim knows, if he listens to this, people,
are you kidding me? Do you think Jim Carrey listens to this podcast?
No, he doesn't. But I'm saying if word gets
did you see how many people with Jim Carrey? He's got like 12 million followers on Twitter. Do you see how many people he follows?
One.
I
think his daughter?
I don't know. I think that probably he doesn't even do his Twitter account. A lot of stars don't really do their own Twitter account.
Okay. Well, if word gets back to Jim that, okay, you did not send this robe to him, is the offer rescinded then for the press box, for the box seat?
No, I don't know. No, it shouldn't be, because he got the robe one way or the other. So
yeah.
And I think it was my understanding that it was supposed to be my robe, that I was supposed to get to keep the robe after the filming of the movie, because it was made just for me for that role. So anyway, but he wound up with it.
Well, that's great that he wrote a person. You don't see that very often. Maybe a call that says thank you, but a personalized letter. Was it handwritten or typed?
Well, it's typed on this awesome this parchment paper, gold parchment paper. But then, of course, it's his signature. He signed the whole thing. But I mean, to have a piece of memorabilia from the most avant-garde moment in comedy history. Now, what he's talking about, he's not talking about the movie itself. Right. He's talking about the deal that me and Andy Kaufman did as being the most avant-garde moment in comedy history. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, King, it's Lawler versus Kaufman. The real feud will stand the test of time. And we talked about it during our podcast series, is that, everybody, they might not know who Jerry Lawler is, after that, if they don't watch wrestling, but it bridged the gap between Hollywood and professional wrestling that has lived on even to today with WWE and all the Hollywood stuff they do during WrestleMania or throughout the year.
Sure.
You started that, King.
Now, let me ask you this. What do you think he meant? I've looked at this a bunch of times, and I've tried to figure out what he meant by this next sentence when he said, working with you was both an honor and an odyssey.
Honor and, well, obviously, it's a compliment. Obviously.
Yeah, but what did he? Why was it an odyssey? What does that even mean?
It's a long wandering or voyage, usually marked by many changes of fortune. Jim Carrey is a very spiritual man. The other definition is a spiritual wandering or quest.
Yeah.
So maybe, yeah. So that's a very, very good compliment.
Well, you know what? I swear to you, I still believe this in my heart, that him doing this movie back in that time, 1999 or 2000 or whatever. I don't believe that Jim Carrey was a spiritual man before that. I believe that he was Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, Grinch, all of those people rolled into one. And doing this movie and becoming Andy Kaufman had such an impact on him. Then I believe after that, he became the spiritual person that he has remained to this day. And I think that's when he started his odyssey, was during the filming of this movie. And I really believe it changed his whole life. I mean, he's into transcendental meditation now because Andy was. And except Andy at the time didn't take it to the weird level that Jim Carrey has.
That's amazing. Yeah, this you can tell in the documentary with the film at the end when Jim is talking about his life and how he is now. And it just this movie really had a big effect on him long term, even after he kind of killed off the Andy Kaufman character after the movie was commenced. It's a really interesting film if you haven't seen it, people.
Yeah, it really is. I'm proud to be a part of it, and it was financially rewarding for me to be a part of it too. That's another story that I can't tell. I can't tell. I'm contractually obligated not to tell about that part.
But still, it's a great documentary. If you guys want to watch it, it's on Netflix. Just a great film. And just as someone who watched the film when it came out, because of Jerry the King Lawler, it's very interesting to see all the behind the scenes footage. Not even with the parts with you, King, but just overall how he really sold and really was into the character so much through the whole process. Just amazing. Right. Jim Carrey.
And for so many people that I personally had, and I know a lot of people had wondered what happened to the Ace Ventura, what happened to the Grinch guy, what happened to Jim Carrey over the years. He became almost like a recluse. And if you see, when you see him, you'll see this long beard and totally looking nothing like Ace Ventura at all, and he's just becomes this serious, it's like a total transformation. It's not like the Jim Carrey that anybody, I think, remembers from the movie screens.
All right. That was a long answer to one birthday wish.
Oh, it sure was.
But no, it was great. A lot of emails we've come in or tweets, they want to know about Jim and Andy. And we talked about it a little bit last week, but after myself. And
I've never read that letter to anybody. So this is the first today on the podcast.
Well, I feel all our listeners are treated. So on your birthday, you're giving us a treat. Let's go on to the voicemails. We have a few more. Some of these are questions. Some of these are just wishing you a happy birthday. So let's go to this one. Here we go.
Hey, happy birthday, Jerry. It's Rich Coe, Sven Gooley from ETV. And, even before we became friends, I was a fan of yours. Always been amazed by your many talents and accomplishments and the fact that you and I know so many of the same gags. It's always an honor to know you. And let me join your friends and fans in saying, long live the king. And may I say, may you live to be as old as most of my jokes. Happy birthday, my friend.
Man, Rich. Sven Gooley. Yes, he's one of my favorite people in the world. I love the guy, man. And then, he and I have become friends and been friends for a long time. And he's the host on MeTV, Memorable TV. A lot of people around the country see him on Saturdays. And he's like the horror host of the scary movies that they show there on Saturday evenings on MeTV. And I'm a big fan of his as well. And I really appreciate him wishing me happy birthday. Thank you, Rich. That was awesome.
Let's go to another one here from another fan. This is Frank in Montreal.
Hey, King. Frank from Montreal here, wishing you a happy birthday. We met at WrestleCade over the weekend. Just wishing you all the best with that special day. Be well, King. Happy birthday.
Nice. Yeah, I remember meeting Frank, and we talked about the fact, that the cardiac arrest that I went through and everything was there in Montreal. And yeah, I just saw him this past weekend at WrestleCade. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. There's another great accent that he had a really thick Canadian, the French-Canadian accent there.
And we're international flavor for the show. We got UK, we got Canada. Well, speaking of, last week we talked about the percentage of fans are male, female. we had a few female fans, mention, hey, don't forget about us. There are some female fans that listen to the show, so I want to say a special thank you to those female fans.
The Carpenter family, I got a special mention from them, and of course they all listen, and there are two females in that family, and they listen religiously every week. So we do have some female fans, and I'm very thankful for them.
Definitely. So here's another voicemail for the birthday boy.
Hey, King, this is Dave Dynasty. Wanting to wish you a very happy birthday. Hoping all is well. And look forward to catching more appearances by you in the future. Big fan. Love the podcast. Glenn, you're okay too, but this is the King's time to shine. So happy birthday, King, and many more to come.
Well, thank you very much. Why are they? We need to do a special question one week and say, what do you think of the King's co-host on Dinner with the King?
Please.
What would happen there?
People don't like me. Some people don't like me as they're probably jealous. They're jealous. I get to talk to the King for an hour every
well,
week.
you got to be used to that, right? Your whole life. You were an only child, and you still weren't your mom's favorite. But that was,
let's go on to the other voicemail, King.
I got that from Rich Cosfins-Gooley. That's one of his jokes that he wants me to live as long as.
That one will stand the test of time. That one will never. That will be around long after you yourself, King. Let's go to. This is from Brandon Ross. You know who Brandon Ross is?
Brandon Ross.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does. Who is that?
Well, here we go.
Happy birthday, Kingfish. This is your old buddy, Brandon Ross. You'd know me if you saw me. I think you would. I know you. But anyway, buddy, I had a question about a match. I don't know if I dreamed this or not, but it seemed like there was a match one time during the fair with you and Ronnie Garvin. And there wasn't many people in the Coliseum that day. And it really just, I was a kid, but it looked like a fight. It didn't really look like a match. So if you recall that, I know you've been hitting the head a lot, but if you recall that, I'd like for you to talk about that match that took place. And it was, like I said, it was going on at the fair. I didn't even know wrestling was happening. Eased into the Coliseum, boom, here's the King and Ronnie Garvin going at it. It seemed like Ronnie showed up in a towel and smacked you in the head a couple of times, and things got a little weird. Happy birthday, King. Talk soon.
Okay. We used to, he's probably right in the fact that every year the Mid-South Fair would come to town, and it would kind of take over the entire fairgrounds where the Coliseum was. So sometimes we would, it would be there during the Monday, and it would always, I think he mentioned there was a small crowd. It would always affect our attendance. People would go to the fair, not necessarily come in to see the wrestling or whatever. But I wish I could recall that actual match. I know I had a bunch of matches with Ronnie Garvin. They used to call the guy Hands of Stone, and that was that was the reason why, because Ronnie was not that, he was not known as a technical catch king type wrestler. When you got somebody known as the Hands of Stone, that means he would ball up his fist and hit you a lot. So that's probably how that match was going, and why it looked like a fight instead of a wrestling match. But I wish I could say that I recall that actual match, but I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah,
probably one of those hits on the head by the Hands of Stone.
Yeah. All right, this is this is the second to last birthday wish / question for you, the King. Here we go.
Hey, King, happy birthday. My question is, I had read that Owen Hart once pulled a practical joke where he put a bunch of farm animals in Vince McMahon's office. Is that true, or have you ever heard that? Supposedly it was with an angle back in the 90s dealing with Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So just curious if you had ever heard that before, if that was true or not. And again, happy birthday.
Thanks for the happy birthday wish. I think I know. I didn't get to actually witness it, even though I was sort of in on it a little bit. What happened was, as when Hunter Hearst Helmsley was Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and he was this prim and proper Englishman, so to speak, type guy. I think they had a match where they set up a pig pen. I think he was maybe wrestling the Godwins or something, and they set up a pig pen next to the announce table there. And so I did get to see all of these. They brought in like 8 or 10 pigs, and they put them in all this mud, and you can imagine these pigs were out there roaming around in this mud for hours and hours. So I'm sure it was something more than just mud mixed in with this nastiness and everything that these pigs were wallowing around in. And some kind of way, Hunter got flipped over like a backdrop or something into the pig pen. I think that was maybe the way the match would end if somebody got thrown into this pig slop in this pig pen. And the weird thing was Hunter had somehow gotten on the fence or on the wire or something. He had got this vicious cut on his back. I'll never forget. He got this vicious cut on his back, and it was bleeding and everything. But then the trooper that he was, he still took this bump over the fence right onto his back in this mud and mire and pig probably poop, and with that open cut on his back, So that was really taking one for the team right there. But I think what he's talking about was I didn't get to see this, but I heard that somehow earlier in the day when Owen saw the farmer or whoever it was that brought those pigs to the show, I think he did take a couple of them and convinced the farmer to let him put them in Vince's office for a few minutes. I mean, Owen was just great. Who else would think of something like that? Who else but Owen Hart would think of, like, you see this farmer, they've contracted this guy. They called this guy up and said, hey, we're going to have a match, and can you set up a pig pen here inside the arena with about 8 or 10 pigs? And so when Owen sees this guy driving up with all these pigs, boom, the first thing that pops in his mind is, what would Vince McMahon's reaction be if he walks into his office and here's 2 or 3 of these pigs, rooting around on the floor in his office? So I think that really did happen. I wish I could claim that I was partially responsible for that, or at least actually saw it, but I think that really did happen. I did get to witness and call the match where Hunter got thrown into the pig pen, though.
Who put these pigs in my office?
Oh, hey, trust me, back in the day when Owen Hart was around, you didn't even have to ask who did this. You knew immediately. If it was some kind of crazy rib, you knew it was either Owen Hart or him or British Bulldog would be the two that would be responsible.
2 things from that match in your house pay-per-view in December of '95. I think Hunter actually got a nasty infection from that cut and was given antibiotics because that cut was opened up in a really unsanitary, pig pen. He did get a nasty infection, and Kevin Nash claims that he could see the scar on Triple H's back when he wrestled him years later. So I'm sure he still has a scar from that cut. And in true King fashion, when they showed the shots of the pig pen before the match, you were doing commentary with JR, and you said something along the likes of, "Look, JR, did you bring your family to the arena?" I said, "Look, it's a Ross family reunion. Look at all these pigs." Good God.
What's that? Well, the pivotal third spin of the... JR, have you brought your relatives here tonight? Oh, that's hilarious. Is this a reunion of some sort? What is this? Looks like it. We're tied up with the Redneck Triathlon at 1 event apiece. What will the third event be?
Yeah.
Terrific. But yeah, so thanks to all the questions. We had a ton more, but we wanted to pick just a handful, some that stood out to you, and some loyal listeners of the show. But King, I think you have some birthday plans, so we're gonna let you go, but not before a very special happy birthday wish, a happy birthday song from our surprise singer. And he's a wrestler. He's a very famous actor. Now, I'm going to give you a couple guesses before I play this clip for you, before he sings to you happy birthday. Just from those 2 clues, can you give a guess on who it is?
Well,
He still wrestles here and there, but now he's a world famous actor.
Well, I was going to say The Miz, but Miz is still more of a wrestler than an actor. I know he's off. I think he's off filming the Marine 19 or something right now.
Marine 6. Come on.
Oh, 6. Okay. Well, he made a lot of Marine. That's a lot. He's getting up there with the Star Wars sequels or something. That Marine, man, that thing has some legs, doesn't it?
And Shawn Michaels in this one, and Becky Lynch is in this one. Yeah.
Bigger. Well, anyway, so it's not Miz.
It's not Miz.
And then I thought, with years, you got that. We all got that Cleveland connection with Miz. So let's see, who else? Is it Jim Carrey?
It's not Jim Carrey.
I know it's not Jim Carrey.
He's not a wrestler.
Well, he was during that match.
Come on.
The movie.
This is the guy he wrestled before he went big time in Memphis.
Oh, are you kidding me? The Rock?
Here's The Rock. It's The Rock. The Rock singing Happy Birthday.
You got The Rock to sing Happy Birthday to me? How did you do that?
Well, yeah, I got The Rock to sing Happy Birthday. So here is the audio clip of The Rock singing Happy Birthday.
Wow.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Wait a minute. Well, I mean, I know that was The Rock, but where was the happy birthday to Jerry?
I mean, she's singing Happy Birthday.
So you get a hold of The Rock and you say, can you send a birthday song to Jerry Lawler? And that's what you get?
Well, actually.
Or is this, wait a minute, Glenn, this is so bogus. Where did you just pulled some clip off an old wrestling show of The Rock singing Happy Birthday. That wasn't to me.
Yeah, this is off of YouTube. The Rock is us singing Happy Birthday.
You've just ruined my whole birthday now.
You should have seen your face. You got so excited. The Rock's wishing you happy birthday.
Well, right. Of course I was excited.
I Googled Terry Funk sings happy birthday. I Googled Jim Cornette sings happy birthday. I tried to find someone notable to sing happy birthday, and I found this Rock clip. I'm like, oh, the King will love this. He's going to make The Rock.
No, I don't love it. No, I do not love this. Man. And then we're going to end the show that way with me all down.
Well, I'm sure Lauren can cheer you up.
Oh, you could have got Marilyn Monroe singing Happy Birthday, but she was said Mr. President.
Yeah, that would do. See, that if I would have done that, it's not believable. The Rock, though, there's that 5 seconds of hope that
that hope spot.
Hope spot. Well, maybe the Rock will send you a happy birthday tweet. You never know. He's a very busy man, though.
Yes,
very busy. Hey, you get that photo yet of the Mr. Garrison King, Gary the King Baller?
Oh, did you send it to me?
I sent it to you.
Look on my phone right here.
This is a guy who wrestles in AIW here in Cleveland. And I think if you come to Cleveland, they book you. That's probably one guy you need to humble.
Oh gosh. I almost can't see him because he's standing sideways. What does he weigh? Like $120?
Soaking wet.
Yeah, but I see you're right. He's trying to do some kind of hip hop gimmick.
Yeah, so he has a crown on his hat. You can't really see it. It's a
I'd see
photo.
it.
But he had a little crown. It's Gary the King Baller. He doesn't come out to the music, to you. He comes out to I think a rap song, but he comes out. He does the baller. But
okay. Well, now that I see this, I don't think he's really trying to rip me off.
Well, still, Gary the King Baller. What's the first thing you think of?
Jerry the King Lawler.
Okay, so what do you think?
Well, I don't know.
He's trying to get his name out there.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been a lot of kings over the years, and there's kings before you.
Of course.
So can't help a kid from trying, right?
Nope.
Well, but you can come up here.
I'm not mad at him anymore.
I'm sorry, you can go up there to Cleveland, and the pile drivers are not they're not illegal up here in Cleveland, so you can.
I can pile drive him.
Yeah, I would pay to see that.
That was funny. George South, in the start of our match, he came over to me and he said, you know what, King? I'm gonna embarrass you here tonight. I've decided that I'm gonna beat you with your own hold. This is before the match even got started. He said, I'm gonna beat you with a pile driver. I'm gonna beat you what you used to break my good friend Andy Kaufman's neck. And he said, I'm going to stick your head between my legs, and I'm going to turn you upside down. I'm going to drop your head right into the mat, and they're going to have to carry you out of here. And so I got the microphone from him, and I said, so you're going to beat me with my own move, the pile driver, right? He said, yeah. And I said, well, in that case, I'm going to have to beat you with a move that a good friend of mine up in the WWE taught to me, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I kicked him in the gut, and I turned around and gave him a stunner. Boom, right after the very first move of the match. The people went crazy.
Did you pin him?
No, I didn't pin him right then. He rolled out of the ring.
I was going to say, if you pinned him.
But they loved the start of that match.
That's a good one. Well, you've used the stunner in some matches.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of, not your signature move, but.
No, but I love that move.
It's so easy.
So easy.
You just fall on your ass. That's all you do. It's a simple move.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right.
Easy.
All right. Well, everybody on Twitter, wish Jerry Lawler a happy birthday. King, I'm going to wish you a happy birthday. It's been an honor to hang out with you, to talk with you.
This show has been an honor and an odyssey.
It's been an odyssey knowing you, King, for the past 6-7 years. But happy birthday, and here's to many, many more.
Hey, and I appreciate it. I thank you very much, and happy birthday to me. It's going to be a good one, I guess. I'm going to forget about the Rock phony birthday wish, and hopefully go on from there. Whoa, look at this. You got me looking at my Instagram account there at Real Jerry Lawler, and I put up that picture of me and Honky Tonk Man and Jimmy Hart, and it's already got 8,964 likes.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
All right, this has been Dinner with the King, the Happy Birthday Jerry Lawler edition. Again,
what episode was this? What episode number was
36.
It? Wow.
36, yeah. Almost as old as you.
Yeah, but it's in episodes and weeks, not years.
I know. All right, we'll talk to everybody next week. Follow us on Twitter, Dinner with King. We're on
Get
YouTube.
that check. It's still sitting there. Get the check. I want to see you pay it.
Speaking of which, we're on Stitcher. We're now on Spotify. So if you listen to Spotify, you can search Dinner with the King, and it pops up. You listen to your podcast.
And what else? I saw you put up something about Apple.
Yeah, we're on Apple. We've been on Apple for a very long time. We're on, like I said, Stitcher, so Android and Apple, iPads, you're on your desktop. We're everywhere. But Spotify is the new avenue to listen to the show. Jerry, it's an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. Again, happy birthday. And that check is still sitting. I want to go, though. We'll talk to you, everybody.
I'm putting my hands in my pocket. I'm not taking it.
We'll talk to everybody next week. You're on Dinner with the King.
Bye-bye.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.